Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. What's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on Pub Stomp MTG. It seems like there's a lot of really cool Assassin's Creed creatures that are coming out in Magic the Gathering. Of course, we did get a lot of Naya commanders. I think we got 3 Naya commanders in this set. However, I'm going to be discussing 2 of them because this is actually a double header. This is an interchangeable commander where you could choose one or the other, and it'll actually not impact the deck at all. I mean, it'll impact it in a way where you have a different commander in the command zone, but essentially you could use one or the other in the command zone. So the commander I am first referring to is Eivor Wolf-Kissed. So let's first read what she does, and then I'll talk about the other commander. So for 3 red, green, and a white, it's a legendary creature, human assassin warrior with a 7/6 body. That is incredibly strong. It does have trample and haste, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards. You may put a saga card or a land card from among them on the battlefield. So this is quite strong. It has that ability to mill a potentially huge amount of cards depending on how much combat damage you deal, because you will deal 7 if nobody blocks it. So you can mill 7 cards, put a saga or a land card onto the battlefield, and plus this is an immediate effect because it does have trample and haste. So this is quite powerful. Obviously, it looks pretty intimidating based off the art alone. I would not want to mess around with that commander. But there is another commander that you can build this deck around. You could use one or the other option. And that commander is Sigurd, Jarl of Ravensthorpe. This does have Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink, and has Boast 1. Put a lore counter on target saga you control or remove one from it. Whenever you put a lore counter on a saga you control, put a +1/+1 counter up to one other target creature. And it does have a 3/3 body. So this is quite powerful. I think the other one is a little bit more powerful, but this is 3 mana less, so if you wanted a cheaper option as a commander, this is a good option. Plus, what I do like about it is the fact that you could add or subtract a lore counter from a specific saga you control. And then if you put a lore counter on a specific saga, you could just buff up another creature on the battlefield. So in a way, this will definitely help you with the sagas to keep them around. The other one will focus on cheating sagas into plays, so either one are pretty good for the deck because obviously the main focus of this is going to be sagas. So if you have one as a commander, one would definitely be in the 99 of the deck. So with that said, let's get into it. Let's talk about the deck and talk about some of the synergies with either commander. So let's first talk about the game plan and talk about synergies with our commander and the enchantments. Of course, I did want to first focus on Nesting Grounds and Hall of Heliod's Generosity. Nesting Grounds is going to move one saga lore chapter to another saga, so that's going to be great to manipulate those situations. Hall of Heliod's Generosity, when a saga goes to the graveyard, we could just put on top of our library, so if we swing in with our commander, we have that option just to cheat into play. Either commander is an aggressive theme, so I wanted to give it double strike, so ways we could do that is by using Duelist Heritage and Bayek of Siwa. I absolutely love Duelist Heritage. It does act as a political tool. We could give anything double strike on combat. That does depend on our opponent's creatures swinging at us. We don't want to give it double strike obviously, but we want to give our opponent's creatures double strike when they're hitting somebody else. Plus, if we do give our commander double strike, we have that way of essentially getting 2 sagas on the battlefield because we could deal 7 damage and then 7 damage again. And if we give Sigurd double strike, that's completely fine because it does have Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink, so we could gain double the life and potentially protect our commander if somebody tries to block it with like a 3/3. So if there's any ways you could give your commander double strike, that's going to be absolutely perfect. I did want to mention Search for Glory. There isn't necessarily any snow synergy. Obviously you could add snow synergy to your deck, but search your library for a snow permanent, legendary card, or a saga card, reveal it, put it to your hand, then shuffle your library. You gain life equal to the amount of snow mana you cast the spell with. But in all reality, the main reason why I'm including this is because it can search for a saga card if you really needed a specific one on the battlefield. Another card that synergizes with sagas is Historian's Boon. Whenever it or another non-token enchantment enters the battlefield, we make a 1/1 white soldier creature token, and whenever a final chapter ability of a saga you control triggers, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. This is just one way to widen the board. If an enchantment enters the battlefield, that's fine, but mainly if we have sagas going to the graveyard, we're going to be making angel tokens, so that's the main reason why I wanted to focus on this one. From Kamigawa, Satuki, the Living Lore is another great option for your saga decks. You can tap and put a lore counter on each saga you control, activate only as a sorcery. When he does die, choose up to 1, return target saga or enchantment creature you control to its owner's hand, or return target saga card from your graveyard to your hand. So either option, it's just returning a saga to your hand so that you can play it again, reset it basically to the first lore chapter. But you can really speed up all the sagas you do have on the battlefield by putting a lore counter on each saga you control, only activating as a sorcery. So this is a perfect option in my opinion in the deck. If you have a lot of sagas in the graveyard, look no further than Brilliant Restoration. For 3 and quadruple white, so it's a 7 mana card with 4 mana pips of white. So that is quite a cost knowing that this is a 3-color deck, but I think it's absolutely worth it because you can return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So to me, this is a very good card in the deck because we want to make sure that we have a way to return all enchantments from the graveyard to the battlefield that are sagas. So that way we can get a lot of value out of them going back to the lore chapters and finishing them off. I did want to dive even deeper into the Enchantment Synergy so that we could get the most out of our enchantments entering the battlefield. So of course we're casting a lot of them. A lot of the Enchantress effects where you cast an enchantment spell, you draw a card, are just going to be fantastic to include so that we can refill our hand. The more effects we do have like this on the battlefield, the more we could draw cards. So these are kind of no-brainers in the deck so that you can get some great card advantage. Some other effects that I think are better in the deck are Eidolon Blossom, Setessan Champion, and Ephemerith Enchantress are going to be basically better than the other Enchantress options. Most of the time, depending on which commander you have, enchantments are going to be cheated onto the battlefield, so they're going to enter the battlefield, so that Constellation effect of Eidolon Blossoms and Setessan Champion are going to be more effective than those Enchantress effects. And Ephemerith Enchantress, because a lot of sagas are going to the graveyard, we get to draw a card off of that, so this is equally as good as the others too. Another Constellation effect I do want to highlight is Calyx Guided by Fate. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Whenever Calyx or an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a token that's a copy of non-legendary enchantment you control. Do this only once each turn. We don't necessarily have auras that we focus on in this deck, but we do have other options where we could just make a token copy of another saga we control on the battlefield. But let's still keep focusing on Constellation. Archon of Sun's Grace is going to widen the board for us because whenever enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token. So this just has that way where enchantments are entering the battlefield left and right, whether we're cheating them with our commander or casting them. We'll just have that option of constantly making a bigger and bigger army. Another fun win con you get out into the deck is Nihilus Colossus for 6 and a green. It does have Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. So this does synergize with Eivor more, but it does also synergize with Sigurd because it does have Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink, so we could just double the power and toughness of Sigurd or Eivor. Eivor will get the most benefit out of it though, basically getting 14 power, so you can swing in, mill 14 cards and put a saga card onto the battlefield. Plus, if you do have Eivor as your commander, if you play an enchantment, then another enchantment, you could give her 28 commander lethal damage, swinging at one opponent. So yeah, Nihilus Colossus is going to be quite insane. One of the best cards you could add to the deck is Starfield of Nyx, mainly because at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return a target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield, so that constant way of just putting those sagas that left the battlefield the previous turn, you could just return it to the battlefield at the beginning of your upkeep. Plus, if you have 5 enchantments on the battlefield, all your sagas are going to essentially be creatures on the battlefield, and their base power and toughness are going to be equal to its mana value. So if you have a lot of them, you're just going to be swinging for a huge amount of damage. Speaking of sagas, what are the best sagas you could add to the deck? There are so many options, especially in this color combination. The first one I did want to highlight is Fable the Mirrorbreaker, one of the best sagas in recent history. It got banned in Standard, but this just has so much value. Making a goblin token swinging for treasure, also a looting effect, and then transforming it into Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, where you can make a token copy of another non-legendary creature you control, is quite insane. Another option from Kamigawa was Boseiju Reaches Skyward. This is a ramp spell on the first lore chapter. On the second one, you can put a land card from the graveyard on top of your library and then flip it into Branch of Boseiju. So the Kamigawa ones are pretty good. Other ones from Theros Beyond Death are great, like Elspeth Conquers Death and the Crone War. Elspeth Conquers Death acts as a removal spell, also as a sack piece for your opponents, and then returning a planeswalker or creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield is pretty good. This could be absolutely busted with Sigurd, just constantly just removing a lore chapter, resetting it each time so that you could just keep removing creatures on the battlefield. The same can be said for the Crone War, constantly gaining control of target creatures as long as you control the Crone War. On the second lore chapter, it's pretty good. It acts as a goat effect, and especially the third lore chapter, each creature deals damage equal to its power to itself, is pretty powerful too. Let's move on to some others like Oath of Eorl and the Elder Dragon War. Oath of Eorl does have that ability for the first 2 lore chapters to make tokens on the battlefield, but that third lore chapter is Chef's Kiss because both our commanders are humans. We can put an indestructible counter on them, and the Elder Dragon War is perfect because it acts as a board wipe for those little creatures creatures. Also, we could discard any number of cards and draw that many cards with a second lore chapter. In that third lore chapter, we could create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. We could choose any of those orders. If we just wanted to go straight to the third one, making a 4/4 dragon, we could easily do so. That's mainly due to the fact that it has that read ahead ability on the top. But my personal favorite saga to choose from is There and Back Again, because I absolutely love the Hobbit. This is pretty good. One creature can't block with that first lore chapter. The ring will tempt you. The second lore chapter will ramp you with a mountain, and the third lore chapter will make Smog a legendary 6/6 dragon creature token. And when it does die, you create 14 treasure tokens too, so that's honestly a great flavor win with the Hobbit. However, the last saga I do want to share with you is the World Spell. This is a big and splashy one. It does have that read ahead ability where you could choose any one of those options at first. The first two lore chapters do read, look at the top 7 cards of your library, you may reveal a non-saga permanent card from among them and put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. And the last lore chapter does read, put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Unfortunately, it doesn't put saga cards onto the battlefield. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but this deck is not only filled with sagas, it's filled with other stuff that will synergize with our sagas, so I feel like either way, this is going to be a great splashy one that could potentially get us ahead in the game. So with that said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on both commanders. I know you could choose one or the other. I feel like Eivor Wolfkiss is a little better than Sigurd Jarl of Ravensthorpe, but I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions about which one you would choose out of the two options. I think it really does come down to, do you want to cheat in sagas or do you want to keep sagas around? So with that, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. With that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.